Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a coffee with Lufthansa, which is the first in a new series of events, of a new event format. The coffee with, we're going to have a closer look at what our member companies are doing, and we're doing that by talking to one of the representatives. My name is Rainer Piero. I'm director of the German Chamber of Commerce. I'm joined by Bastian Franz, who is country director Denmark for Lufthansa. We want this to be a dialogue, so you are welcome to ask questions using the chat. And I'm just reading it. We have a big screen here, so Bastian Franz and we can read all your questions as you type them. And so feel free to just ask your question once you have a question. We are going to talk about Lufthansa and the whole sector and the future of travel. And I can assure you Lufthansa is still there. I used 2 of their planes yesterday. It was a good experience. And I recommend to all of you to take up flying again, because there is a lot of space and it's a very convenient way to travel these days. But let's get to our topic. My first question to Bastian Franz would be about the current status of affairs there at Lufthansa. I think you're down about 90% travel-wise, turnover-wise. How do you manage such a situation at Lufthansa, Bastian?
First of all, Rainer, thank you for having me. It's actually great to meet people face to face for a change. These days it's becoming less. And I'm happy that we're still flying. I personally have not been on an airplane since, I think, September. So I do miss that feeling, and I hope we all get back to it soon. So you have to tell me how your experience was. That's what a coffee chat is all about. How do you manage a crisis like this? I guess we all have our own ways of dealing it. For us, it came a bit of, not as a surprise, but we saw it around February when we had to close or take the decision from a company perspective to suspend all of our operation to China. And then it got serious when our biggest field of operation, which is the North Atlantic, suddenly closed down around mid-March. And then we noticed something really, really serious came on. And how do you manage a crisis like this? I actually think we had, from a company, but also from a local perspective, we had 2 separate fields of actions. One was the cost side. You just mentioned we were down about 90% in revenues. That means clearly nothing is coming in. And throughout the whole year, especially in the very beginning, we had more cancellations of bookings than we actually had new bookings coming in. So money was just pouring out of the company. That was the famous 1 million hour of loss of cash flow out of the company that Mr. Spohr was talking about. 1 million euro an hour. So you had to deal with that crazily in the beginning. You scaled down operation to the bare minimum. What is really system relevant that you needed to operate? What can you stop in order not to be producing any costs? So we scaled down operation crazily. Locally, we renegotiated with suppliers, calls that I never wanted and expected to make, to call my landlord that Lufthansa is not able to pay rent in a certain amount of time. So we really tried to do our utmost. Even 500 euros, 700 euros made a difference in that moment. You suddenly really had to scale down. I nosedived into the topic of governmental support, because actually, and I think this is crazy, especially for a worker, that your company is going through the biggest crisis, and the only thing you can do is stay at home and rely on governmental support, short-term work. I think we're now back to 60% of short-term work up here in Denmark. So you really had to downscale and look at every penny you spend. And now we're, I think, at 2 million euros, 1 million euros every 2 hours. So we halved our cash flow, cash out in the company. At the same time, on the cost side came the effect of home office. People had to be sent home while we needed the staff at the service centers. Refund requests, rebooking requests came in. So you had to manage in the very servicing on a higher level in an IT landscape that was simply not scaled up for it. So you had to really ramp up the IT side. But that was the cost side. On the other side, we actually dealt with a different product suddenly. Customers actually had different needs to travel. We looked at our lounge product. What do we do on board? How do we deboard in a good way in order to ensure social distancing? We had to completely reinvent our way of informing the customer. It was not about what can you do at what point and enjoy the travel. You actually had to say, please be early at the airport, what you need in order to travel. Finding the right balance in both ways. From one side, making sure that costs are down to a bare minimum, at the same time, reinventing your complete overall product and adapting to new customer needs. And that latter part was actually, it was an exciting journey. Direct feedback, agile ways of working, learning what works, what doesn't work, deboarding. How did it go now yesterday with you?
Well, that went fine. You cannot check in through your smartphone now because of test requirements. That's a bit of an inconvenience. And of course, the Copenhagen airport is another inconvenience because it takes you an hour to get out of Copenhagen airport. That's just what it is at the moment.
One thing, I think convenience for me is at certain points is a convenience. You want to get from A to B, especially if you're flying for business. Sorry for any airport that is listening in. I try to minimize my time at the airport, do mobile check-in. We had to suspend all the mobile checks because of the governmental requirements of test certificates by the passengers. And we cannot right now integrate this into our systems from a GDPR perspective, but also simply because the capabilities are not there. So instead of minimizing the touch points at the airport, we suddenly had to ramp them up again. So every passenger is personally being checked at the gate.
Let me get back to one point that you mentioned. You mentioned government support.
Yes.
Here in Denmark. How satisfied are you with Denmark and Danish administration at that point?
Since I'm only responsible for Denmark, I have nothing really to compare about, but I have to say the way the Danish government has handled this situation has been really impressive. Pragmatic. I've read somewhere that in our home markets, Austria, Germany, the payout of government company support is really slow. But the Danes, nothing. The money came regularly, came fast, and it really helped us get over this tough period.
Good and effective administration also.
Yes.
I think we have the first question here from Mark Meyer. Morning. So what is the way ahead? I think it's pretty much the same like on my cards here. My question would be, well, this one, and what are the perspectives for the industry? Well, you being the largest, I think Lufthansa is the largest carrier in Europe.
Lufthansa Group, yeah.
Purely stand representatively for an entire industry. How is this industry going to shape up over the next couple of years? What are you going to focus on in the development of the industry?
I think, thank you, Mark. What's the way ahead? First of all, we have to realize what the situation is. We always talk about the new normal, but right now nobody knows when it comes and how it comes. Will business travel pick up slower than leisure travel? Do you want to fly privately a lot more than for company-wise? And if so, how? So those are all glass balls that we have to adapt to. I think the first point that we have to figure out right now is what are the long-lasting effects of health requirements, integrating this into our customer experience. Rainer just mentioned that he had to go to the check-in counter. Right now, what we are doing is right now re-digitalizing everything that we had to take away beforehand. So integrating our test certificates. We just yesterday launched where you can upload your test certificate before departure, so you could actually go through mobile check-in without having to see anybody. Those are the ways that we have to learn to cope with it. Then we talk about vaccinations. So we're really going in that direction to re-digitalize the whole customer journey based on the new requirements of the governments. Because for us, it's a new situation. So that's a first step. The second step, of course, the convenience travel comes back into the picture. We want to focus more and more on the biometrics options that we've done. We just last year in Frankfurt and Munich in the airports, we launched biometric security control and boarding passes. We really want to invest into this direction. And the third part is actually also sustainability. So first, re-digitalization, then going back to convenience again, enhancing this, and then of course the sustainability.
So there is one rather intimate question. How much money did you receive from the Danish government? I don't know if that is something that you can disclose.
I think I'm not going to disclose the exact figures, but there was actually a check-in article that disclosed some of that money. But we actually did go for a fixed cost compensation, so we used that package and the Lohnkompensation and Arbeitsverteilung in the meantime.
There is a question by Dennis Karl, who's asked about the impact that Corona has on actually the CO2 neutrality plan that you have. Of course, this costs a lot of money that might be missing for investment in carbon neutrality.
You talk about investment and we talk about carbon neutrality. If you just want to look at that point, I actually think there's one thing that makes it quite easy. In the moment you use more fuel efficient aircraft, you actually spend less money. That's one thing here. But to be honest, it's such an important topic, the sustainability, that it was actually made one of the top 3 topics of the Lufthansa groups in the over the next years to really focus and develop more and more into it. It's one of the strategic topics. You mentioned Compensate here, which is a platform where you can offset your CO2 emissions by either investing into us building trees or actually us using sustainable air fuel on our aircraft. We have over the last months actually enhanced the options. So we integrated this into the Miles & More app, for example. So we will go more and more in that direction. With the turnover of our fleet, we will actually be reducing the CO2 emissions because we will be using more CO2 friendly aircraft. So in that direction, this is really one important key pillar of us. So yes, the investment topic is there, but I think it needs to be done in order to get a grip on the sustainability topic.
I'm seeing a question by Carsten Larsen, who asks about the return of business travel, and that actually leads us to the third part of this coffee chat, the future of travel. We actually discussed it just before we sat down here. What is the perspective for, say, in 5 years' time, 25, 26? How much of business travel will get back, and what is the future of business travel? What will it look like?
I think
best guess, surely.
My personal best guess is I've read articles that range from we're back 22 to we're back 26 with to pre-corona or pre-crisis levels. What is the truth? I can't tell you. I do believe, though, that right now we're all in the need to travel and see each other. That's what we do. We connect people, we connect cultures and economies. And right now we all have this unsatisfied urge to see one another. So I think in the moment countries will open up, probably over summer, we will see a surge in bookings. Just yesterday, I don't know whether you've seen it on BBC, they announced that after Boris Johnson said, yep, we will slowly open up. I think TUI announced that their bookings have 500 times gone up 500 times than than during normal times. So people need to travel. But I do think what you mentioned is Microsoft Teams, Skype, Zoom, the one we're using right now, will have a lasting effect on corporate travel. We will still meet. We have to meet. I think some businesses cannot go without. But the question is that we have to ask ourselves, do we really have to travel for each and every single project meeting? Or do we just travel less, but then make it worth our time instead of traveling for an hour? I would rather spend traveling for 2 days in order to really get something out of the business trip. So I think business travel will probably be hit more than leisure travel. I hope, Carsten, that answers your question in that respect.
Well, my job is getting easier by the minute because I have the questions coming in, and there's an interesting one about management. Really, how did you make sure that your employees stay engaged and satisfied, motivated, especially the pilots and staff that is suddenly at home?
I have to say, pilots, I don't know, but the staff here, I think it's something I really had to learn. Normally, I would ask them how they are during the day. You actually meet them face to face. And now, especially when they're on furlough, so not working at all, you have no interaction. Yet it becomes, and I've learned this, more critical to talk to them on a regular basis. On virtual ways, actually schedule more meetings one-on-one with them, asking how they are. I even now have during furlough times, we have once a week an update call where I say, okay, this is how it is. How are my staff doing? I think our management, Carsten Spohr, Harry Hohmeister, Christina Förster, have done an amazing job over these months to actively involve staff, inform staff how they are, how the situation is, what the topics are. So I think, especially in the crisis mode, this staff communication is more and more relevant than it probably is beforehand. It's a steep learning curve. I think everybody, I need to grab my own nose. We need to really take the time, sit down and exchange with the staff, make use of all modes, phone, Skype, WhatsApp, what have you, to really engage in that dialogue with your staff. It's more important than ever.
The question on operations here in Denmark. What is the impact you expect on smaller Danish airports like Billund and Aalborg?
I think in general, what we see is right now a downscaled operation on all sides. But what we, for example, see is the need to travel also in Jutland. I mean, Aalborg and Billund are in Jutland, and so focusing only on Copenhagen would probably not satisfy the demand. So I think there is the need for those airports as well. But I think at this very moment, operation at all three big airports, four big airports if you count Aarhus, is reduced. But I think airlines are also in this moment willing to try something new. For example, we have announced that we will start Aarhus Munich, a brand new route coming up in the end of March. So I think that's also a chance right now for new markets to be explored. Does it work? Does it not work? Change customer needs, change customer demands. I think if you can't try something now, when then?
I'm looking at some questions that John Nielsen actually asked beforehand, before we met. John Nielsen, who is the former country manager Denmark of Lufthansa, and he asks about your hub policy, for example.
Okay, first, I think, do you know what hub policy is, what that entails? What we currently do is we consolidate all of the traffic via our hubs, which are Frankfurt, Munich, Vienna, Zurich, and Brussels. So we gather small traffic into them and then distribute them into the world. That's our hub and spoke versus point-to-point traffic. And John, it's a very good question, actually, but we actually see right now the advantage of having this. because we believe that we're able to consolidate smaller traffic flows via our hubs, whereas our point-to-point competitors had to give up the route. Rainer used to fly directly to Stuttgart. He came yesterday via Frankfurt. So it is definitely the right approach from our side to go through a hub and spoke system. But you asked how we can, and we still focus on the 5 that we have. I see that you mentioned Berlin. Berlin is an important airport for the Lufthansa Group. I think we are already the biggest airline group that serves BER. But developing this into a hub at this point is no plans, no.
There's a second question posted by John. I think it concerns the seat configuration on planes. What's going to be, will there be a redistribution of seats between business and what's it called?
Premium economy.
Premium economy.
And economy. At this point, no. Because to be honest, it's like I said, it's a glass ball. There's a good guess that yes, maybe some corporates might not travel in the front. But John, privately, maybe there is some unstacked demand and you want to treat your wife on a nicer trip this year. So we actually see maybe a shift back into it. What I think we see, and we have been preparing for that, is more individualization. So when we talk about our new 777 coming on Lufthansa, it will actually have 9 different business class seats. A long one, a wide one, a couple seat. So I think that's the direction to go, to really go more into modern retailing, to be able to sell the seat, not as a seat, 1A, but as what it is, to really see the product behind it, to allow for more individualization. I think that's the direction that we're headed. And at this point, I personally don't know, but you might have to ask Carsten Spohr for that, whether there is a chance to, whether there is a good reason to reduce our business class offers.
Annegret Pedersen asks, I would be interested in how Lufthansa tries to build and maintain the relationship to potential customers during the Corona crisis. Short answer.
Constant dialogue.
Great.
No, we learned different ways of communicating with customers, webcasts, direct exchanges like we do right here. We have that on a regular basis in the B2B and B2C environment. When my colleagues here in Denmark actually came back, we just actively more open, picked up the phone, called our partners to see how they are, what their needs are, but also stay in active dialogue with them. And that is possible through new formats.
I actually asked for a short answer because it's 8:54 and we want time frame. So I'll take in, well, I think we have time for 2 more questions. One of them concerns, I think, consolidation in the sector, asked by Michael. And the other question concerns ticket prices. What's going to happen in the medium term and long term to ticket prices?
So far, I don't think we've adapted our ticket price structure at all. We've made them more flexible. The demand as such will depend eventually on the price range, because it is depending on the time of day, the time of booking, and the trip that you go on. But what I do have to say, you talk about competitive landscape there, Michael. We've already, unfortunately, seen some of the players go out. I mean, Norwegian basically almost stopped operating in and out of Denmark, especially on the long haul side. So there will be some players leaving the market. I know Rainer wants me to probably comment on SAS or consolidation. There I have to say, I have no idea. Carsten.spohr@dlh.de might probably be the better candidate to ask that question, but the competitive landscape will probably look different afterwards, because the financial situation for the airlines or for the trade, for the travel trade, is really, really tight. And if we don't open up the borders and connect people, I think that will be a long, in German called Durststrecke. I don't know what it is in English even.
Will be
a long thirst. Yes.
there will be hard times. There are hard times ahead, at least for some time.
Yeah.
I imagine. Are there any more questions? Do I skip some? I think Jakob Unsko has another one concerning short and long-term business. How do you see it? Well, we have sort of answered.
On the short term, for us, it's really important to re-digitalize the offer towards the product and the customer experience. Make sure that we can integrate the test requirements, vaccine requirements into your journey to make your hassle with as little touch points, physical touch points across your journey to get to where you're going. I think that's currently really the most important thing. Get convenience back into the travel. And then on the long term, really adapt flexibly to the new customer needs.
Great, thank you. I think it's 8:57, so we're approaching the end. We would have time for another question, if there are more questions on your side.
And I ask you a question. You fly on a regular basis. What do you expect from an airline like us when you travel? How would you expect it?
I expect convenience, surely. Well, you mentioned the check-in process. Well, I usually fly between Germany and Denmark. There's not great demand for refreshments or anything because it takes an hour. It is sheer convenience, and of course it is well, minimizing time. Now I cannot fly directly to, for example, Stuttgart, where I go often. Of course, I need to minimize time, or that would be my aim, to minimize time. I am going through Frankfurt or through Amsterdam, as I used to do in a certain period, but that's gone now. That solution.
Yeah, but convenience, it's in that direction. I think it's the right way for us also try to come back to, because right now it's unclear where you can go, and we try to increase our information to you as a traveler and make it as convenient as possible.
There's another one that came in from Michael Schweers. Do you envision something about urban air mobility as valuable add-on?
I'm not 100% sure what you mean there, Michael. I assume that you talk about those air taxis coming to the airport. I think what we're right now focusing in the first round, and actually we now included intra-mobility, between the different types of transport as one of the new departments in our network planning. So we are looking into the different possibilities of integrating different means and modes of transport. We're starting, of course, with the trains, but also other means of transport are included. So I think there's a chance to enhance the value here. So yes, we will definitely be looking into it.
Well, great. It's 8:59. I think we've come across quite many interesting subjects here concerning air travel. Thank you to everyone who was with us there. We, of course, would be interested in your feedback, since this was the first in our new series with a new format here. I could read that we had a sound problem at the start. We had to change microphones 2 minutes before we went on air. But that is an issue we're going to deal with then for the next session. Our idea is to actually do this every other week. We have a little pipeline now. So we're hoping to see you, or we're hoping that you can see us then every other week. And well, please propose companies to us, or propose ways in which we can do better on this format, and give us general feedback. I wish you all a good working day here today. I thank Bastian Franz for coming in from his summer house.
Yeah, it was great seeing somebody personal for once, for a change. I'm really happy. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you for the information that you shared with us.
Great.
Thank you very much.
All right.